It pulled up a missing hour and the body that made it. I locked my sister's old bedroom and shoved the dresser against the door. If this cuts out, it wasn't me. My phone screen breathes deeper than I do, and the house clock says 11:37 p.m. When it flips to 11:38, something happens. You'll hear it. If I go quiet, wait for the second ring, and don't answer it. The carpet in this room remembers everything. Knees from playing church. The sugar-white chandelier dusted with coal from my father's jacket. Harrow Ridge is a rusted mining spine draped over Pennsylvania hills. A main street that only lights if someone jiggles the breaker behind O'Malley's bar. It smells like wet wood, dirt, and old prayers. I came back because my mother's heart gave out in May, and because I didn't have anywhere else to be. I'm Ethan Mercer, 32. The kind of man who fixes laptops and pretends that's usefulness. I planned 2, maybe 3 weeks. Then I downloaded an app that promised to read minds and give answers. I gave it permission. That's when this started. I first saw it at the bar, between sips. Expensive words about knowing yourself, graphics pulsing, a button begging for a touch. Noah, my friend since shop class, slid onto the stool and said I had the face of a man about to make a bad decision. I said I was just watching TV. He looked at me like pity is a warning and said the worst is when we decide to listen. I carried the app home like a temptation in my pocket. The house breathed through the vents, old and tired. I went up to my sister's room. The Wi-Fi is best there, and the sunflower wallpaper used to make me feel bigger than I am. I touched what I shouldn't have. The app didn't show numbers or charts. It whispered one thing. There was an hour I had lost. A whole hour. 11:38 p.m. to 12:41 a.m. in 2016, summer heat filled my mouth with iron and wool. I remembered cut hands, bleach in the sink, the kind of tired kitchen light can't wash clean. I said coincidence just to have a word to hold. The house answered with a soft crack in the ceiling like it had an opinion. The app didn't ask for anything else. It gave me sound. Tires eating gravel. A small break like a bone remembering how. A firm exhale dying into a gurgle. My teeth went coin cold. I said trick, but my voice sounded uninsured. What passed for a memory showed me wet road, a guardrail's gleam, red-lit glitter of broken glass. My body did what it does when the elevator in a dream keeps going down. You ride it because your legs already belong to somewhere else. I kept listening. I won't talk about screens, buttons, or pop-ups. None of that matters for hearing. What matters is the house, the town, the night tuned to the same frequency as me. The porch light came on when I hit the stairs. The hall light clicked off behind me like it was shutting the door. The app didn't speak in text. It spoke in coincidences. Harrow Ridge quiets in steps. First the crows, then the highway, then the dogs. At 11:30 the silence gets organized. That's when the first call rang. The front doorbell sounded like it hasn't sounded in years. We haven't had a landline since 2014, but I swear I heard the old kitchen wall phone trill. I stood still like the floor was thin. The second ring didn't come. The second never comes when you're braced. It comes when you let the air out. Don't answer the second ring, I heard myself say. A quote from a future I hadn't lived yet. Noah texted to ask if I'd heard any artifacts. I told him the house was ringing. He said that's not a sentence. I asked him to come. He said no. Back in the room, the phone lay face down, buzzing that short, mean buzz. I flipped it over. I won't tell you what the screen showed. I'll tell you what went into my ears, my own breathing, a hair faster than mine. Then my own voice. "Ethan," I said. Me, but more patient than I manage. "If you're hearing this, it means you press the button you always press." It felt like a gift from 2016 me. A warning that didn't want to humiliate me. "Don't open the trunk," my voice said. Simple, like a brother asking a brother not to do the thing you both want. "I don't have a car," I told the empty room. "In 2016 you do." Still calm, we left it by the quarry road. The call ended without goodbye. My heart shoved at my ribs like it wanted a different body. I remembered small things. Rubber in the rain, cold metal in dust. How night holds rumors. Harrow Ridge is small. People say goodnight like they're locking a drawer. Sheriff Darlene Klein rolled by with the engine on, windows down, eyes measuring my breath. We were in the same year. She grew 6 inches first and never slowed. "If you need anything," she said, "don't ask me by text." Why? Because everything echoes here, especially phones. She looked at mine like it had teeth. At the grocery, Mara bagged milk like glass. She could outrun me in 8th grade and kiss like she was memorizing a word to use later. Her tired smile could still stop a truck. "Don't go to the quarry after dark," she said. I told her I wasn't going. "You always say that right before you do." I went home and tried to be normal. Washed a cup I didn't use. Stacked lemons green to gold the way Mara would, as if order could teach the night its manners. The house shifted half an inch left, or I did, understand. I'm not a complete fool. I tried to throw it out. The answer I got back was polite as a clerk. "Not now. Later, when it's finished." "Finished what?" I asked no one. The house cracked again, a toothless laugh. Then the hour arrived. 38, not one ring. All of them. The doorbell. The dead kitchen phone. A bleep that had to be the thermostat. Why does a thermostat need a bleep? And the dry buzz of the intercom that never worked when my father was alive. I froze. Silence dropped so fast it squeaked. The second's coming, I thought. It did, but not from the door or the wall. From the phone, a bright little chirp, the clean tone movies use when they pretend the police are on the line. I answered. Static. 2 breaths. One in step with mine, one half a beat behind. An echo trying to lead. And my voice, exactly mine, with more discipline than I own. "Ethan," it said, "don't open the trunk." I wanted to laugh. "I don't have a car." "In 2016 you do." Pause. We left it by the quarry road. It hung up. I stayed. The house stayed. The world leaned in to hear what I'd do next. I went to the breaker on reflex and for a second killed the whole house. The dark made its wool sound. I brought the power back. The microwave started its old hope. 12 o'clock. Forever. I learned how to breathe again. There's history in this dirt. Men learn to fall and stand up in the same motion at the quarry. For the first time that night I heard water. I don't know if it came from outside or me. I remembered Mara saying don't go and me saying I won't. I remembered the summer of 2016 like biting a date. I remembered how the town talks when it wants you still, with lights, dogs, and bells that no longer exist. I won't tell you what I saw on a screen. I'll tell you the sentence that lodged behind my teeth when I finally understood what that missing hour carried. There was a body, and its origin was the quarry. I won't say names, not yet. But there was a scarf on that road in that memory, a red that didn't know if it still was, caught on a barb that shouldn't have an edge. There was plastic giving way, not bag plastic, vowel plastic. There was a small plea, half gurgle, half word. There were hands scrubbed in bleach that woke with new cuts. And there was my voice, trained calm, repeating, "Don't open the trunk." I stood in the hall with the bowl of lemons like that was what kept me on the floor. The house inhaled with me, and from under the boards, low and polite as a neighbor, something knocked twice. This town sleeps in layers. To reach what really happens, you peel them back one by one like wet clothes. I left at 1:45 with the flashlight my father kept in the drawer of measuring tapes. The quarry road starts right after the church, where the bell, ashamed to wake anyone, rings like it's apologizing for being heard. Asphalt forgets. Gravel doesn't. Everyone who passes here passes twice, once with their feet, again with their guilt. The wind brought water and metal. 2016 all over again. That same coin on the tongue taste. I didn't bring anyone. Noah said he wouldn't come. Mara said I'd go anyway. Sheriff Klein, when I drove past, kept her brights off like she was saying, I don't see you if you don't see me. In Harrow Ridge, you protect the town when you can, and the town pays you back when you no longer need it. County Road 6 narrows at the guardrail. It remembers humid nights and the spot where cars whisper and people don't. I pulled over the car I no longer own. That's how memory works. It gives you things that don't exist and still leave marks on the ground. Off the reflectors there was a darker patch, an oil shadow the rain won't argue with. I parked my body, which was what I had to drive. Everything I'm telling you now comes without screens. It comes from the body I used that night and the one left to tell it. Sound first. Stone surrendering under a boot heel. A twig snap. Water worrying at its walls. Then sight. A red scarf snagged on a barb of fence wire. Red that had to remember it was red. And lower, the blink of glass like someone threw a handful of stars and told them to be quiet. I touched the scarf and didn't want it. I pocketed it like hiding a lit match. Memory doesn't arrive whole. It comes in strikes. Strike 1. Light spinning inside a cracked headlight. A sick eye. Strike 2. My hand lifting something off the asphalt. Light, cold, edged. In the flashlight beam, it was a broken mirror. Corner stamped with the logo of a cheap brand. I didn't keep it. Some objects refuse to be carried because they weigh more than metal. The first ring was the wind and a distant porch chime. The second ring I didn't hear. I felt it on my shoulders. The sensation of someone saying my name without using a voice. I answered inward. I know. That's what brought me the rest. The missing hour wasn't a movie. It was a hallway of doors. Behind one of them, a trunk sat half shut. And before you ask, I didn't open it. Not in that memory. What reached me was a smell. Bleach, hot plastic, blood. The kind of smell you don't learn at work, you learn by mistake. The road ended where water began. The quarry opens like a mouth that swallowed its own tongue. Black walls drop clean to the lake's blade. The far-off murmur became breath. I swung the light and it bounced off stone and came back smaller. Don't go to the quarry after dark, Mara's voice said from a corner of me. I answered her with a step. There are no guards at the quarry, only reminders. Spent ropes, chains that don't close anything, old tire marks. Long before 2016, men climbed down here to slice the earth into shoulder-sized pieces. Long after, boys came to prove courage. Between those two, we kept the stories nobody writes. I found what I was looking for by the way it didn't want to be found. Under a blue tarp in one of the tool sheds, mud-stained and still. The tarp didn't flap with wind, it breathed. That slow rise and fall of fabric holding air, like a big animal asleep. It wasn't imagination. The night was moving. I laid my fingers on the plastic. Cold. I pulled. The tarp gave with a rip the dark swallowed. Under it, a car I knew from the inside. Mine. The one I sold when I left town. The one that, it turns out, didn't leave whole. The hood wore the curve of an impact on the right. The headlight, that same sick eye, sat crooked, a baby tooth unwilling to fall. I touched metal, and metal touched back with an old cold. My hands remembered bleach. My nose remembered the rest. My heart tried to pitch a different story and failed. I won't call it courage. I found it the wrong way, by habit. I did what my body already knew to do. I reached for the key where I used to leave it before a run. It was there. Keys know their people. No alarm. The car woke like old people wake, with a groan that's relief underneath. I opened the driver's door and stepped into a smell you don't get in cars that haven't done anything. It was like stepping into a closet after a small fire. The seat whispered sentences I refused to translate. On the passenger mat, a lacework of dried salt. I dragged a finger through it, and my skin recalled night the way you touch a scar. The glove box sat open, empty. A small round stain dotted the headliner, the mark someone tried to scrub with panic instead of method. I let my head fall back, lined my eyes up with 2016, and asked softly, "What did I do?" The quarry answered with a slow bubbling, like someone blowing from under the water. I listened. Sometimes the only thing to do is grant time enough time to remember without your hurry. That's when the second ring came, the one I'd been trying to dodge with tricks. It didn't come from a bell. It came from inside me, like a fingerless hand knocked twice on the bone behind my sternum. I said, "I'm here." What followed wasn't a voice. It was a vowel tearing, an A that didn't fit a mouth, a plea without a tongue to make it. I won't gild it. There was blood. There was fear. There was a decision. And there was a lie told with actions. Wash, hide, don't speak. I won't tell you yet if I decided alone. Not for mystery, out of fairness. I left the car when the lake's breathing synced with mine in a way that wasn't human. I marked the tarp, the shed, the V-scarred tree, the rock shaped like a sleeping dog. Harrow Ridge keeps a cartography that only makes sense to its own. A map that fits inside bone. I walked back to the road like closing a book I knew I'd have to open again. Halfway up, high beams swept the shoulder. The engine cut. A door opened. Sheriff Klein stood level with my shadow. "Late for a stroll," she said. "I'm trying to put my head back where it goes." "And your heart? Does that have a place?" She tilted her head, eyes narrowing to listen to more than I was saying. "Klein doesn't hurry. The town taught her that." "You going to tell me what you're looking for?" "An hour." "Find it?" I found minutes. The seconds keep running. She breathed slow through her nose. "If you go to the quarry, bring someone who can swim." "You swim?" "I see who's drowning before they get in the water." We stood in that quiet that comes before noise. Then she went back to the cruiser. "Don't text me," she said again, like a prayer. "If you need me, knock." When her tires rolled away, silence fell like a heavy coat. That's when I realized the scarf was in my pocket, and warm fabric can burn like ice. I took it out, smelled iron, and let go. It didn't hit the ground. It clung to the rail like it already had an owner. I went home with empty arms and a crowded head. At this hour, the town decides who it admits and who it refuses. It admitted me because it needed me back. It refused me because it feared what I was carrying on my skin. I climbed the stairs, counting each step like a rosary. At the top, I stopped. Under the floorboards, that same neighborly knock. 2 polite taps. In the bedroom, I sat on the floor, back to the bed, and said out loud to no one, "The missing hour has a body." Words, when spoken, turn into furniture. Those became a heavy dresser. They stayed where I left them. I fell asleep, sitting up, body angled toward the door like I was expecting a visit. I dreamed of light swimming dark water. I dreamed of a girl handing me a silent phone and saying, "Listen," without opening her mouth. I dreamed my car started by itself and eased into the lake, careful not to wake the neighborhood. Birds with hurry woke first. 5:12 a.m. The house, beast by night, pretended to be a house again by morning. I poured a glass of water, drank half, left half like proof of life. My hand smelled like plastic, and water, when it wants to remember you, returns the smell intact. I knew what came next. Some questions you only ask with a body. I went back to the quarry when the sun wore its church pale. I took the boy's path down, cataloging each root, rock, and snag. At the bottom, the water still breathed. The tarp still rose and fell, less now. The car waited the way the guilty wait, by not moving. I stayed outside, the distance where you can see everything and touch nothing. I spoke to what wasn't there. "If I open it," I said, "there's no coming back." The quarry isn't a court, but it knows judgment. The echo gave me back a no coming that sounded like 3 voices: mine, the water's, and someone from 2016 who couldn't finish an A. My fingers found the trunk's latch. Heavy. Exactly the weight of what I didn't want to weigh. I lifted it a hair and stopped. The wind turned and brought the scent of cemetery flowers braided with old gasoline. The kind of perfume that exists only when someone chose the wrong place to say goodbye. Ethan. Not from behind, not from the car, from the rock to my left, a tired voice that had practiced asking. It said my name like signing a paper without ink. "I know," I said, holding the shake in. "I know." I took a half step, and then, very close, beneath a wide plank on the shed floor, another sound answered in that same neighborly tone. 2 slow taps, the kind you don't forget once you've heard them. I knelt and pressed my ear to the wood. On the other side, silence. Then a small sound, almost just friction, something smooth sliding in dust. A phone waking, a screen no one turned on. I didn't need to see. I already knew what I'd hear when I finally found the nerve to lift the board. I heard the first ring. Before the second, I closed my eyes. Morning in Harrow Ridge acts innocent. It wears church light and hangs laundry on the line like proof it never hid anything. By noon, the truth starts sweating through the shirts. I walked Main past O'Malley's and the barber with the striped pole that stutters when the wind hits it. People nodded the way you nod at a man carrying a box he shouldn't set down. No one asked why I was back. They asked how long. I told them, long enough. Mara caught me outside the grocery, her apron smudged with flour like she'd been baking a new face. "You look worse," she said, "which is Harrow Ridge, for I'm worried." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and didn't look at my hands. "You went out there?" Not a question. I walked. Walking's what men say when the road is doing the pulling. She lowered her voice. "If you see my father, don't." "Why?" "Because he thinks doing nothing is the same as being innocent." That was the kind of talk people used about the old capataz of the quarry, Mr. Danner, Mara's father, who could make the town move by doing only his eyebrows. He used to sit on his porch and take the heat out of other men's anger just by letting them hear themselves. Useful skill. Dangerous one. At the church, Pastor Lyle had the side door open to let the building breathe. He's the kind of thin that looks like a decision. "Back in the fold," he said, for a minute. He studied my face like a man reading weather. "I hear two voices when the town sleeps," he said. "The one that forgives and the one that memorizes. You should pick one before it picks you." I didn't know they take volunteers. They do. They call them witnesses. He handed me a folded paper, a printout from years back, missing across the top. Eliza Hart, 19, last seen leaving work on a Wednesday no one could remember the color of. Flyer edges gone soft from being tacked and untacked. Someone had written across the bottom in pencil, "She likes red." I slid the paper into my jacket and kept moving. By afternoon, Sheriff Klein had me at a booth in the diner with a coffee that tasted like decisions gone cold. She sat with her back to the wall and the sun on her badge. "Tell me why your old car is sleeping in our quarry," she said. "Because I never learned where to put the past. Try not on top of the water." She didn't smile. "You're not the only one with ghosts, Ethan. Don't feed yours in public." She stirred sugar into nothing and looked at me over the spoon. "You found anything that belongs to someone else?" "A scarf. Red?" "Yes." She kept stirring. "Eliza Hart liked red, I heard. You remember the hit and run out on County 6? I remember a summer that kept deleting itself." She set the spoon down gently, like it might break the cup. "You're not the type to make a girl disappear." That sentence leaves room for too many types, I said. Klein glanced out the window at the town like she could see the whole map at once and all the places guilt pools. "If you're going to go back out there, don't go alone." "I'm rarely alone," I said. And we both let that answer sit where it sounded. I left the diner with coffee heat scalding my palm and a list of names I wasn't going to write down. The town breathed a little faster, as if it had been holding a plank for too long and needed to shake the burn out. That evening, I walked the streets that only flicker into being after 6. The pawn shop that buys grief. The pharmacy that still knows how to print a photograph if you ask the right woman behind the counter. Every window showed me a different version of my face. The boy I drove away, the man I kept, and the one the town had been saving in case it needed a villain. At 7:12, Mara texted, "Dinner?" I typed yes and didn't send it. Instead, I went by the care home where she works. She was wheeling Mr. Kessler down the corridor. He was humming a tune I almost recognized, something from the summer band used to play at the Friday market. He stopped when he saw me. "You've got road dust on your voice," he said. "Don't track it in here." Mara parked him by the fish tank and took me to the break room. A calendar on the wall still sat on 3 months ago. "Eliza came by here once," she said, eyes on the microwave clock that always lies. "Volunteered a week. She liked the red sweater. I told her it made her look loud. She said that was the point. She blinked and looked at my jacket like she could see the folded paper inside. They searched the quarry back then. Sort of. Sort of how? The way you search when you want to be done searching. She touched my wrist. If you find anything, don't bring it here. Where then? Where it can breathe. That night the town turned its head. You can feel it when it does. Porch lights decide to be moths. Dogs sniff at nothing and find it. I sat on the front steps with the lemons in a bowl beside me like a small son I could control. The air tasted like keys. At 11:10 I walked to the library. Ms. Graves, who has been there since the Eisenhower administration, even if calendars say otherwise, left the side door unlocked for me. "Don't drip on the carpet," she said, and went back to wrestling with the printer that never takes a hint. In the microfilm room, the machine squealed itself awake. I scrolled summer of 2016 until the days blurred. There it was, hit and run on County Road 6. 2 paragraphs, no photo. A name the paper didn't print because the paper is polite where it shouldn't be. At the bottom of the page, smart as a wink, an ad for the quarry company promising new jobs that never came. Someone had circled the word cleanup in blue pen. I copied the article and traced the circle with my finger until it smudged. On the way out, the storm door swung and kissed its frame twice, soft, like a neighbor reminding me of the hour. 30. The town started organizing its silence. I took the long way home, the route that crosses behind the old fireworks store where Noah camps out with his tools and his not-all-the-way legal hobbies. He met me at the alley without me calling. "You look like a man the night wants to keep," he said. "It already owns the mortgage." He fished something out of his hoodie pocket and held it between 2 fingers like it could bite. "Found this by the rail," he said. "Not today, back then. Never told. A key. Not mine, not to my car. A house key stamped with a hardware store number and a groove filed by impatience. There was a smear on the head I could see even under the alley light. A brown that had dried long ago and gone shy about what it used to be. Why give it to me now? Because you're the one that came back to finish the thing nobody will call a thing." He looked down the alley toward Maine, where the town kept its secrets in plain sight. "And because if I hold it any longer, I'll start telling stories to earn it." I pocketed the key and it burned cold. "Whose is it?" He shook his head. "Keys tell you where. People tell you who." He backed into shadow. "If you go to the quarry," he said, "don't answer the second." "I know." He smiled without teeth. "Do you?" I didn't sleep. I pretended at it while counting the seconds my house takes to exhale. At 11:37 I sat up. The walls listened. The ceiling considered its next move. The porch light brightened without admitting it had. 38 first ring, the doorbell. Silence. Second ring didn't come. Not yet. Something else did. A soft scrape from the kitchen like a chair moved itself an inch so it could hear better. The old wall phone that isn't connected rustled in its cradle. "Ethan," a voice said. "Mine, but used differently. If you want out, bring what you took to where you took it from." The voice paused as if to test if I'd obey pauses. "And if I don't?" I asked no one. The house answered with a sound I didn't have a word for. Imagine a mirror blinking. Now imagine being sure it did. I stood and the world stood with me. I went to the door and opened it to the porch light and the empty street. At the top step sat a brown envelope softened by a day of weather. My name was written in block letters that tried not to shake. Inside, a photograph of the quarry from above, taken from the ridge path. A faint red circle around the shed where the tarp lives. On the back, a single line in pencil. Bring her back to the water. No signature. The handwriting had the carefulness of someone who never learned to rush. I turned the photo over and held it up to the porch light. In the upper right corner, almost lost in sky, a little black smudge. I blinked and the smudge blinked, which is to say a bat or a trick of the eye or my heart forgetting its job for a beat. The second ring came then. Not a bell, but 2 knuckles on wood from under my feet. That polite neighbor again. Tap, tap. I looked down at the boards. The knocks answered from the dark like a conversation in the next apartment. And far off, as if memory had lungs, the low sound of water. Practicing the word yes. I picked up the envelope, and the photo and the key, and said a single sentence I couldn't unsay. Once I said it, I'll go tonight. The town held its breath to see whether the word tonight meant me or itself. The town doesn't argue after midnight. It lets the dark do the talking. I waited until 12:20, when even the milk trucks give up, and took the ridge path with the photo in my pocket and the key heavy as a swallowed coin. Wind pressed the trees flat, then let them up one at a time like a hand testing a bruise. The quarry lights were off. No one pays that bill anymore. But the water still had its own kind of glow, the kind deep things make when they think no one's watching. I told myself I wasn't here to open anything. I told myself I was just here to return what the envelope had asked for, bring her back to the water. I didn't know what that meant. I don't know if I still do. Down at the sheds, the tarp exhaled, smaller now, like sleep had turned to pretending. I set the envelope on the workbench and, without looking, slid the red scarf beside it. The scarf made no sound. The quiet noticed. "Ethan," a voice said, from exactly my left. Close enough that if it were a person I should have seen breath. Mine. Not mine. The voice you hear when you rehearse being brave and fail at it. "I'm here," I said to the rock. "You keep saying that," the voice said, "and yet you keep leaving." I came back. For who? I didn't answer. There are questions that want your mouth, not your truth. Something shifted under the wide plank where I'd heard the taps. Not a shift, you see. A shift your ribs make room for. I wedged my fingers under the edge and lifted. The board complained in a long, papery sigh. Under it, dust, a tangle of old extension cords, a rusted wrench, and tucked into a rectangle of dark like a photograph in a frame, a phone. Cheap, cracked black case furred with grit, dead until I touched it. Then the screen flickered, not on and not off, a firefly trying to be polite. The instant my thumb brushed the glass, a voicemail icon appeared. No carrier name, no battery, no time. Just a red dot like a tiny sore. I didn't press play. I didn't have to. The sound came up through my finger. Haptics, memory, ghost, I don't care what you call it, and into the room. "Please," a girl's voice said. Not a child, not a woman who had learned how to make men leave a room. A 19 that thought 20 would clear everything. "Please." It hurts to breathe. My name wasn't in the message. Names are luxuries pain doesn't pay for. But there was a detail I couldn't pretend not to recognize. The high inhale she took before each phrase, a hitch like a bird catching its wing on wire. I had heard that breath once before, standing at the Friday market while the summer band struggled a Springsteen cover. A girl near the lemonade stand had laughed at the wrong time and then apologized for laughing like laughter was something you could be charged for. She'd been wearing red Eliza Hart, not printed in the paper, printed on the town. The message ended with the sound I'd been trying not to give a name to since the first night. the vowel tearing. Not an A this time. An O, flat and startled. Then a car door clicking, very carefully, like a child trying not to wake a house. The board slipped from my hand, and the phone woke fully, as if permission lived under wood. A new alert wrote itself across the cracked glass in letters so thin they could blow away. Bring it back. What is it? I asked no one, or whoever had learned to be no one. The tarp moved. Not pretty. Not the way wind moves fabric when it wants to be dramatic. A rise, a halt, a little shiver. Breath running out of rehearsals. I went to the car. The hood still carried its bruise. The headlight held that milky, almost human film. Cheaper plastics get right before they quit pretending to be strong. I touched the latch with my knuckles, and the metal recognized me like dogs recognize bad decisions. "Don't," said my voice from behind me. I half turned. No one. Just the shed wall with its tally marks carved by bored men waiting out rain. Hashes that meant nothing until you put two and two and a missing girl together. I set my palm flat to the trunk and counted slow to 3. Something inside the car counted with me. I lifted the trunk. It didn't throw itself open. It climbed its own fear like a man getting out of a bath too full. The smell moved first, heavy and indecisive. Bleach that had told a lie and had to live with it. Plastic that remembered flame, a dim iron that had learned to keep to itself. Then the shape. Blankets, the old moving kind, gray with a blue stitched edge. The kind you get free if you know a guy in shipping. One was folded like respect. One wasn't. I didn't touch them. The night did. The wind came up the quarry and stroked the top blanket, and I saw the ghost of a handprint that wasn't mine. Too small, narrow palm, long fingers, the smudge of someone who had tried to press a life back into a shape. "Okay," I said. "Okay." I closed the trunk because I am a coward who knows his limits. My hands shook like they were remembering music. I put my forehead to the metal and breathed the car's breath until mine agreed to keep going. An engine turned over on the ridge. Headlights made lattices through the trees. I stepped back into shade and let the car be a shadow in my shape. Klein came down the path like she owned the grade, no hurry. Her boots trusted the ground. She stopped at the shed door and let her eyes do the work of a dozen questions. "Evening," she said. "It's not," I said. "You opened it." Not a question. I did not. I swallowed. I looked. She held out her hand. I gave her the phone from under the plank. She turned it over, studied the crack that spidered from the top corner, the grit packed in the charging port, the way the glass kept threatening to be a mirror. "Whose?" she asked. "You tell me," I said. "You're good at that." She hummed, a sound people make when they're training their face to wait. "Eliza's father brought me a phone once," she said. "Said it made noises after the funeral." I told him grief makes all kinds of noise. She handed the phone back. "This isn't that phone." "Do you believe me?" "I believe you are here and not asleep. That's belief enough for now." She looked at the tarp, at the barely moving breath under it. "What do you want me to do, Ethan?" "Tell me the bad version," I said. "Tell me the one where I did this." She stepped closer until we were both in the smell. "If you did, you didn't do it alone." "That should make me feel better," I said. It doesn't. Klein's radio hissed, then quieted like it was clearing its throat to say nothing. She killed the volume. I can call this in, she said. We wake the county. We tear the place apart with useful men and useless flashlights. Or we do it the way this town does things when it wants them done right. What way is that? We move slow. We don't scare what's hiding. She tipped her head toward the trunk. Will it run? It did earlier, I said. Cars remember a man's touch longer than they should. Start it. I stared. You want me to drive this? I want to see if it goes where it wants to go. Some things do, some things don't. Either way is a story. I slid into the driver's seat. The fabric greeted me with that weary groan old chairs make when they recognize a familiar weight. The key turned in the ignition like it had been practicing without me. The engine caught and settled into a low, convinced idle. Headlights, Klein said from the passenger side window. I flicked them on. The sick eye flared and steadied, throwing a pale tunnel through dust. Dragonflies we couldn't see in daylight wrote their names in the beam and erased them again. Drive, she said. Where? Don't pretend you don't know. The car knew the path better than I did. Down the gravel apron, left toward the lower cut, around the pile where old ropes go to die. Each turn came with the feeling you get when you walk into a room and forget why you came, only backwards. I remembered why and had to pretend I didn't. At the lake lip, the engine changed its mind about breathing. The idle thinned, hungry for a thing engines shouldn't want. I put it in park. Out, Klein said. We stood at the water's line, shoes tasting the damp. The surface lay very still, a sheet pulled over something tall. Bring her back to the water, I said, and the sentence felt like a lock clicking open in a door I couldn't see. Klein watched my face instead of the lake. Who told you that? Someone with careful handwriting. And you do what careful handwriting tells you? Tonight I do. She took out her phone and took a single photo. No flash. Tell me the rest, she said. The rest? You said there was a bad version. Tell me the worse one. I don't remember, I said. That's the worse one. We both heard it then. A sound from the trunk. Not the blankets. Under. A shift of something against something more stubborn. We turned at the same time. The car, without me in it, unlocked itself with a polite click. You seeing this? I asked. I've been seeing a lot of things, she said. This one I admit out loud. The trunk eased open an inch. Klein's hand twitched toward her hip, then stopped. No, she told herself. Or the gun. Or the idea of it. Not yet. We walked back together and lifted the trunk the rest of the way. The top blanket lay like a cloud that had given up. The second blanket had a crease in it shaped like a decision. Klein lifted the top layer by one corner, face flat, jaw set like a car jack. Underneath, plastic, not a bag, sheeting. Heavy, common, nothing impressive about it but the way it sealed wrong, like someone had argued with it and nobody won. We need a warrant, she said to the air. Do we? I said to the same air. We do if we want to sleep later. She lowered the blanket and turned away to swallow whatever the night was feeding her. Close it. I did. My hands remembered the first time like they were playing along with an old prank. Ethan, Klein said. Who else was with you? I started and stopped, because my throat had decided the truth was a splinter that needed turning before removal. Don't what? Don't remember. Don't want to. Don't think I was alone. Those are different. I know. She pointed at the sheds. What else is in there? We went back inside. The board I'd lifted earlier lay crooked like a slipped picture frame. Beneath it, the dust had a new line through it, a clean stripe where something had been dragged. To the corner, then out, then nowhere. We lost the mark where the concrete forgot how to hold a story. Klein knelt, touched 2 fingers to the stripe like a medic finding a pulse. Something left, she said, or something was taken. Same shape, different hands. She stood. Look at the bench. The envelope I'd brought was open. The photo of the quarry lay beside it, but the back was no longer blank except for the writing. Someone, sometime between my opening the trunk and now, had pressed the pencil so hard the letters dented the paper deeper. A new line below the first, not yours to keep. Who's talking? I asked the room. The room, Klein said. We both turned toward the door in the same breath. A wash of colder air moved through, just enough to make the tarp breathe like it meant it again. From the ridge, a figure stood against the sky, arms folded, posture plain. It could have been anyone. It was, because everyone in Harrow Ridge knows how to be anyone when it wants to watch. Danner, Klein said without lifting her voice. Mara's father didn't answer. He descended like a man who chooses his rocks and makes the rocks respect the choice. Up close, the years sat on him like a jacket that cost less than it looks. Sheriff, he said. Evening. You don't get to name the hour, Klein said. He nodded at me like I'd returned a tool late but in working order. Boy. I'm too old to be boy, I said. You're exactly boy enough for this. He looked at the tarp, at the car, at Klein again. You stirring mud or clearing it? Depends who you ask, she said. I'm asking you. I'm listening, she said. Mr. Danner let the silence sit until it did the work for him. Eliza, he said finally, like the word was a ticket no one would punch. Girl was loud. She liked red, I said before I could stop myself. He cut me a small, precise look. She liked being seen. There's a difference. Is there? There is, when men who don't know the difference are involved. He towed the gravel and drew a short line that pointed toward nothing. My men told me you were sniffing. My men don't like being sniffed. Your men liked dumping, Klein said, so mild it took a second to hear the barbs. They liked night shifts. They liked cash that didn't go through a bank. Danner smiled a grandfather's smile, warm, empty of apologies. You know a lot for someone who never learned what to forget. Klein didn't move her hand, but her voice found a lower gear. Say the part where you tell me to stand down, Mr. Danner. I like that part. I'm telling the boy, he said, as if that made it softer. You set something in motion. You don't get to decide how it stops. He leaned in just enough I could smell the work on him. Rope, oil, that honest dirt men talk about when they're selling a lie. Bring it back to the water, he said, and my stomach did a trick that made my knees think about sitting. You wrote the note, I said. I don't write. Writing is for people who plan on being quoted. He looked past me to the board, to the space where the phone had been, to the clean stripe in the dust. Something moved. Did you move it? Klein asked. If I had, you wouldn't ask. He turned to go, then turned back. "Time's the only river," he said. "All the rest are holes we dug ourselves." He climbed the ridge without checking to see if we were staring. We were. Klein let out a breath she'd been editing for a decade. "He knows more than he brings," she said. "So do you," I said. "I bring enough to make my own bedtime." She checked her watch, though I could tell she already knew the hour by the way the dark leaned in. 11:37. We both heard the first ring before the minute changed. Not the doorbell. The wall phone in my mother's kitchen, miles away. Sound travels strange when the town wants it to. "Don't," Klein said, which could have meant anything. Too late. My body had already turned toward the trunk, the way a plant turns toward a window. I lifted it. The blankets looked exactly the same, which is the worst thing a blanket can do. "Ethan." A voice at my shoulder. Not Klein, not Danner, not me. A woman who had practiced my name until it wore down like Riverstone. I didn't turn. If I turned, I'd put a face on it. Faces make lies possible. I kept my eyes on gray fabric. "Say it," I said. "Say what?" Klein asked. "Not you." The air waited. "Please," the voice said. "Bring me back." "Back where?" I asked. "To when you didn't stop." Klein touched my elbow, just 2 fingers and the temperature of warning. "Close it," she said. I did. Not because she told me, because my knees were about to choose gravel over obedience. The second ring didn't come from anywhere outside. It tapped twice under the boards of the shed floor. Polite, patient, neighborly. A sound that makes you feel ashamed for keeping someone waiting. "Enough," Klein said. To the ground, to me, to the old air that carries more secrets than oxygen. "We do this my way now. We call it in." Call who? The part of the county that still knows how to look a thing in the face. She took a step away to get signal, and the night stole her for a second before returning her. "Dispatch," she began, and then stopped, listening to a voice I couldn't hear. "Say that again." A beat. "Say it again slower." Another beat. "Okay." She ended the call and her mouth did a shape I didn't know it could do. "Phone lines at your street are ringing, Ethan." "Wrong number?" "Every number," she said. "All at once. The houses are ringing." She didn't want to say that word. She had to. "It's lighting up Central like a storm." I felt it before I heard it. A pressure in my ears. The kind you get right before a plane descends. Only it wasn't a plane. The quarry made a sound that didn't sound like water and didn't not sound like it either. The tarp rose and fell once like a chest, considering a last confession. Something in me decided. Not the part that wants to be good. The part that wants to be done. I opened the trunk. Klein's hand was on my sleeve and then wasn't. She watched like a person watching a fuse burn, fascinated, helpless in the respectable way. I folded the top blanket back and set it on the fender. I lifted the second blanket. An air that had belonged to someone else escaped into mine. Plastic looked up at us, clouded and obstinate. I peeled one corner. It stuck and then let go in a small, wet kiss. "Stop," Klein said, but her voice made no distance. Under the plastic there was the exact thing I had promised myself there wouldn't be, the outline not of a body, but of where a body had been. The impression left in the blanket was clear as a map. shoulder, hip. The valley of a bent knee, empty, not empty, full of gone. Where? I started. Klein leaned in and then rocked back like the car had pushed her. She's not here. She was. My teeth wanted to chatter like a bad actor's. Someone took her. Or she left, Klein said, and the quarry made the far, far sound of a laugh that isn't funny. On the plastic, though, on the plastic there was something the night hadn't erased. A smear. Not bright, not fresh. The brown of a memory that the air had eaten around. In the smear, a pattern, little scallops where a cuff had rubbed. A bracelet with charms had written its version on the world. Mara's bracelet. The one with a tiny red enamel heart that chipped the week the summer band got the rhythm right. I tasted copper. I tasted the inside of my own chest. Ethan. Klein again, softer in a way I didn't like. Look at me. I couldn't, because I was busy seeing everything else. The night of the market. The run to the quarry, I told myself, was a drive. The way Mara had touched my wrist in the care home like she was measuring pulse and time. The way Mr. Danner had said loud with an old man's contempt for volume that isn't his. Ethan, Klein said, hear me. I hear you. Say the rule. What rule? The only one that ever kept anyone breathing in this town. I closed the trunk without folding the plastic back into kindness. My voice found itself and did the one disciplined thing it knows how to do. Don't answer the second ring. Klein nodded once like a judge accepting a plea made in a language the court barely respects. Good, she said. Now run. Why? Because what's about to ring won't be a phone. We did, two silhouettes against a hole in the earth that had learned to say our names. Halfway up the slope, the sound came, a double knock from everywhere at once. Trees, rocks, the frame of the shed, the metal under our feet, the world asking politely to be let in. At the ridge, I turned. The car's headlights made two weak sails in the dark. The trunk, which I had closed, lifted exactly the width of a breath and stopped, as if the night had decided to open the story only far enough to make reading inevitable. I wanted to stare until the ring came again. Klein didn't let me. She pulled me by the sleeve like I was the boy Danner had named me, and we ran the rest of the way without arguing with gravity. At the top, the town's lights made a shape I didn't recognize. Neighborhoods flaring out in paired blinks, two at a time, like a heartbeat trying to be counted. A siren started, another, then stopped like they'd met a red light and chose decency. We reached the cruiser. Klein slid behind the wheel, and the radio that had been dead a minute ago greeted her with a chorus of breath disguised as static. All right, she said to the dashboard, to me, to the part of night that was listening. All right. She didn't start the car. She didn't need to. The engine caught by itself. Headlights came on low. Somewhere behind us, polite knuckles found wood and knocked twice more. Don't answer, I said. I'm driving. She said, and the cruiser eased onto the ridge road like it knew the way to a place where men don't lie for free. I watched the quarry in the mirror until the trees made a frame and then a door and then a wall. In the glass, I saw my own face do something I haven't seen it do since the summer I learned the difference between fear and shame. It chose both. At the first bend into town, a porch light blinked at us 2 times, then another, then another. The town was learning Morse it hadn't agreed to learn. Klein took my hand off the armrest and put it on my own knee like that was where it belonged. "We're not done," she said. "We're not started," I said. "Good," she said. "That means we're in the right place to do the wrong thing properly." She drove us toward Maine, where the church light keeps pretending it invented mercy. The radio finally chose a voice, or a voice chose it. "Sheriff," it said in the tone of a woman who has never once raised it. "We have activity at the Mercer residence." Klein looked at me and I looked at the lemon bowl that wasn't in my lap, and we didn't say what the other was thinking. "Define activity," she said into the mic. "Doorbell ringing," the voice said. "Wall phone ringing, thermostat ringing, stove ringing." A pause. "We don't have a word for that last one." "Stay out of the house," Klein said. "Lock the street. Tell the neighbors this is a drill. They love drills." She hung the mic without looking away from the road. "Ready?" "For what?" "For the second ring," she said, and smiled the way you smile before walking into water you know will take your breath in its teeth. No one ever tells you how loud a quiet street can be when every house decides to listen at once. We turned onto my block and the neighborhood lit in pairs, porch lights blinking 2 by 2 like uncertain eyes. Somewhere a sprinkler clicked on and ticked across grass that didn't need it, then stopped as if embarrassed. The cruiser rolled past hedges kept tidy by arguments and pride. We parked under the maple that used to hold my sister's swing, and I felt the ghost of old rope in my palms, the way you twist your hands just to talk to gravity. "Let me go in first," Klein said. "If something's waiting for a door to open, it's not going to argue about order," I said. "Humor me." She checked her holster without looking at it and walked like you walk when your feet have to keep secrets from your knees. The porch steps did their old complaint, one soft, one sharp, one sighing, and the doorbell gave a single polite ring all by itself, just to show it could. Inside, the hallway exhaled. The house hates surprises. It prefers rehearsals. The bowl of lemons sat exactly where I'd left it, pretending to be a small son I could control. The wall phone, a fossil that insists on being a pet, hung in its cradle and hummed with a sound I felt more than heard. The thermostat's face blinked the way a lizard blinks, sideways and slow. "Lights," Klein said, and they agreed to be on. "Stay behind me," I didn't argue. I know when a sentence is just a way to move air through fear. We reached my sister's old room and the dresser still leaned against the door, the way a shoulder leans against bad news. Klein rocked it back with her hip and opened the room. Sunflowers on the wallpaper had learned a new yellow in the night. Something in their faces looked too clean, as if they'd been washed in a light that doesn't care about plants. My phone lay on the dresser. The screen was dark, the kind of dark that isn't off, the kind that listens. "Don't touch it," Klein said. "I wasn't planning to," I lied, and something in the air smiled. From the kitchen came the sound of a drawer opening itself too far, then the smallest sound a house can make, a fork deciding not to fall. "Clear the first floor," Klein said into her radio, which had finally remembered it owed her favors. 2 deputies entered, steady and respectful, men who'd grown up learning to leave room for the things a room might decide to do. They called rooms clear until the living room said otherwise. The television, which hadn't worked since my mother started calling the remote by my father's name, came onto a channel we don't receive. Snow, then not snow. A picture trying, then failing. then trying again, because trying is a habit some machines mistake for duty. On the screen, the quarry from above. The ridge path like a vein. The tool shed small as boxes a child might fill with rocks and keep. A red circle around the shed where the tarp breathed. As the camera, whatever camera, tightened, the sound came with it. Water, wind, a breath that counted for someone. Turn it off, Klein said. I didn't turn it on. Ethan. She didn't need to finish. She doesn't use all the words she has. She saves them for when silence is expensive. I crossed the room and hit the power. Nothing. I pulled the plug. The picture stayed. The cord lay on the carpet like an unplugged vein doesn't end a heart. The front door knocked twice, polite as ever. Then the back door did the same, not to be outdone. 2 seconds later, the basement door shivered in its frame, wanting to feel included. Second ring is running late, I said. That's not the second, Klein said. That's roll call. On the screen, the car we had left by the water was no longer where we had left it. It had moved 3 feet closer to the lake. Maybe 4. The headlight I'd called an eye found the camera and did what eyes do when they want to be believed. It steadied. The phone on the dresser in the bedroom we weren't in yet vibrated. Not the birdie buzz of a text, the short, mean one I had come to know as a mood. Stay here, Klein said. I stayed long enough to count the lemons. 10. 1 more than when I'd left. Memory likes to give you math you don't know how to use. In the bedroom, Klein's breath flattened, the way you breathe when you want air to feel optional. It's awake, she said. It sleeps. Everything sleeps. The question is what it dreams. I reached the doorway and saw the phone wake in a way that broke the line between waking and pretending to. No lock screen, no notifications. Just a single white line, bottom of the screen to top, as if the room were measuring itself. The line reached the top and a voice filled the house like a glass fills when someone who knows how to pour does it without looking. Confession available, it said, my voice. Older than mine by a year I hadn't lived. Uninstall available upon complete truth. Don't talk to it, Klein said. Not even to tell it to shut up. Especially not. She looked at me. Who was with you in 2016? Mara, I heard myself say before I decided to say anything. Klein didn't flinch. Good cops don't. They file. They arrange their faces so your guilt has room to stand up without bumping into furniture. Mara was with you? She asked. She was in the car, I said. Passenger seat. Or I remember her there. Maybe memory is a liar that tells the truth about what it wants. The phone's white line reset and stood itself up again. The television agreed to show the lake from ground level now. The water looked like a sheet pulled over a tall story. Say the rest, Klein said. I looked at the lemons. 10. When had there been time to be 11? The kind of detail your mind invents because it hates being told it missed one. That night, I said, we drove out past the market. The band had finished and the vendors were closing. The road to the quarry is the road you take when you want to be alone with a decision. We were arguing about nothing because the nothing had a string tied to it that led to everything. Mara told me to turn around. I told her we were already turned. And Eliza? The white line on the phone stopped halfway up and waited like a needle that knows where a vein is but wants you to find it first. She called me earlier, I said. Or I called her. Or we both called each other, and the calls met in the middle and spun like a coin. She said she'd found something. She said she had proof. She said if I didn't drive her out of town that night, she'd walk. She was 19. She thought the road owed her a favor. Klein gave the room a look that said, keep going. I told her I'd meet her. I didn't tell Mara. That's my worst trick, not telling. Then blaming the silence. The television cut to a view of the road at night, as if the camera had learned to dream. The same dream I was dredging. Headlights, the curve by the old billboard that used to sell a brand of cola you can't buy anymore. The place where the ground forgets to be flat. I saw something in the road, I said. A shape you only recognize after you pass it, and the brakes turn you into a confession. What shape? Klein asked in a tone that made me trust the question more than my answer. An arm, I said, or a shadow of an arm. Doesn't matter. I swerved. We hit the rail. The headlight cracked. The trunk popped like it wanted to help. And then we sat. We listened to what cars listen to after they pretend to be shelters. We smelled things I don't want to list in order of guilt. Where was Eliza? She wasn't on the road. She was under it. The sentence came out before I knew what it meant. Not under the asphalt, under the night. In the part of the quarry where the earth slopes wrong and you think you can climb it, but your shoes disagree. Klein didn't write anything down. Her eyes do their own kind of paper. How did she get in the trunk? There are questions dressed as doors. Their handles are cold. I put her there, I said, because the truth sometimes is a person you don't want to introduce to your friends. Not because she was gone. Because she wasn't yet. Because for a minute that felt like a life. We thought the trunk was a room, and the room was a chance. Klein didn't move, which was somehow worse than if she had broken a dish. Who closed it? Mara, I said, and the house did that plain descending pressure. She closed it because my hands stopped being hands. And then? We drove, I said. We drove because motion is a kind of lie that people forgive in small towns if you do it slow. The television showed the lake again. Closer now, the water unkind the way honesty is unkind. We took her to the shed, I said. We laid the blankets out like a bed that only needed the idea of sleep. We said words that I wouldn't repeat to God. Not because they were cursing, but because they were bargains. The phone on the dresser chimed once and displayed a single word. Black letters on white like a headline in a paper that only prints your mistakes. Repeat. Klein's pupils widened the way pupils do when they make a small, private decision. Don't, she said, I'm not. I swallowed and found out my mouth was a dry room with no windows. We did what people do when the story becomes a wall. We cleaned. We made up reasons. We told each other we'd do the right thing when the right thing stopped looking like a punishment. And the bracelet? Klein asked. I didn't mean to touch my wrist. My fingers went there like they were checking for a pulse that wasn't mine. Mara lost it, I said. Or left it. Or put it there so the future would have a string to pull. Klein's radio hissed again, and for a heartbeat the voice that came through was not a dispatcher. It was Eliza, or it was 19. Or it was the echo of a person a town invents because it needs to believe the dead have opinions. Bring me back, the voice said, and somewhere in the house a fork finally finished deciding to fall. We didn't move. Moving is how you miss the part you're supposed to see. Do you think she's... I started, but the word alive is a kind of wish you have to pay tax on. Do you think... Ask a question you can afford, Klein said. Was I the one who hit her? Klein looked at the television where the picture had gone to the curve in the road again. The billboard, the rail, the part of the dark that's darker for reasons. No, she said. You weren't. How can you... Because I was on shift that night, she said, and the room decided to memorize the sentence. Because we got a call about a truck out by the South Cut, and when we pulled it over, the man driving smelled like a law that had given up. because he told me he was late for church at midnight, and he said it with a laugh like he had built his own church out of excuses. Danner, I said. Klein didn't confirm. She rarely confirms. She lets your mouth do its own indictments. We didn't have the body, she said. We didn't have the car. We had a dent that could have been a pothole's autograph and a smear you couldn't prove wanted to be blood. We had a girl the town was already calling difficult. We had a company running out of ways to say cleanup without saying crime. And we had me, I said. We had me and Mara, and a trunk we thought was Mercy. The house gave the second ring then, not from any bell you could point to. It came from the bones of it, the old beams and the new screws, the plaster that remembers different owners' hands. It knocked politely twice, waited, knocked again like it had heard we were slow learners. Don't answer, I said. Say that again, Klein said, and I did. And we both breathed like people who'd found a prayer that matches their mouths. Something scratched at the back door, a sound with dog manners and no dog to own them. The porch light flared and caught a shadow that could have been a coat or a person, or a coat that used to be a person. It didn't knock. It waited. Who else knows? I asked. Klein looked down at her hands and up at the lemons and then right at me. Noah, she said. He knew enough to be scared and not enough to stop being useful. Noah found the key, I said. He found more than that, she said. He found a recording he never told you about. What recording? It's why we're here now and not still at the quarry waiting for courage. He sent it to my private line an hour ago and then threw his phone into the river because he thought water still knows how to bless. What's on it? Klein didn't answer. The television did. The screen switched from lake to a frame of black that resolved into the inside of a car. My car. Passenger seat. A hand-catching light. Mara's bracelet, fingers pressed to lips in a hush that wasn't for me. Her voice on the recording said the line I didn't want her to own. Don't open the trunk, Mara whispered. Not yet. The image jumped. A whole second moved and came back with friends. The camera, Noah's I realized, was in the shed, shooting through the crack of the door, catching the car where we'd left it and the two of us as shapes trying to be decisions. Why was he there? I asked the past. Because he's Noah, Klein said. Because he wants to know how every trick is done, even the tricks that shouldn't be. On the screen, the trunk lifted. The blankets shifted like clouds deciding to be weather. A small sound got out, half vowel, half apology. I put my hand on the television frame like I could steady it. The static at the edges of the picture crawled under my skin and made a home. Mara closes it, I said, watching my own memory correct itself. I step back. She says, leave it to me, and I... You leave, Klein finished, not unkind. I wanted to argue with the version of me on the screen. I wanted to reach in and pull him back by the collar and tell him the story isn't a story if you run before the last line. But he couldn't hear me. He's an old weather report. The storm already happened. The recording ended with the camera spinning toward the sound of boots on gravel. Danner's voice off-screen saying a phrase that carried the weight of a policy. I'll take it from here. The picture went to snow. The house didn't. It held still in a way that made stillness a threat. I didn't drive, I said, finally saying the thing the block had been named for. I wasn't the one behind the wheel when the story got its first dent. I just helped the story not end where it should have. Klein nodded once, as if I'd solved a riddle that had the answer printed under it all along. Who was driving? Danner, I said. And the town. The town doesn't have hands, Klein said. It has doors, I said, and bells, and men who think those are the same as hands. She turned toward the hallway as if someone had said her name in a polite tone. Maybe someone had. We have to bring her back, she said. Not because the note asked, because the story won't stop ringing until we do. How? By saying it out loud, she said. In a way that sticks. I thought of confession booths. I thought of live streams. I thought of how this town prefers one and fears the other, and how both are just rooms where words do their jobs. Not yet, Klein said, reading me right. We'll get there. First, we go to Mara. She won't. She will, Klein said, and the certainty in her voice felt like a railing I could lean on. Not because she wants to, because something in her will be tired of the practice of not wanting to. We left the house with the lemons sitting like a small, defenseless son, and the television still dreaming water. On the porch, the night was cooler, as if having made its point, it could afford charity. The polite knock came once more from under the floorboards, and I told it to wait without using words. We drove without siren, and with all the patience a street that knows our tires will allow. The care home slept with its lights on the way hospitals do, refusing to be surprised. Mara met us at the back door like she'd been sitting just out of sight, listening to the noises a night doesn't apologize for. I know, she said before Klein said anything. I heard the ring. You always do, Klein said. Mara looked at my hands first, then my face, then the place on my shirt where a person might press to find out if you're brave or just busy. You brought something back, she said. Not yet, I said. You brought it as far as the house, she said. The town does the rest when it wants to. Klein cut in quick. We need your bracelet. Mara didn't ask why. She pulled her sleeve back. The bracelet wasn't there. Her wrist looked like a promise someone had returned unwrapped. You left it, I said. I left a lot, she said. Eliza took some. Danner collected the rest. Where? She closed her eyes like she was folding something small that didn't want to be folded. The church, she said. Under the baptismal. He said water was as good a place as any to hide what water should have washed. Klein didn't swear out loud. She has a face for swearing that saves her the energy. Get your keys, she told me. We're going to wake God. Pastor Lyle opened the side door before we reached the steps. He looked like a man mid-prayer who'd been asked to step outside and settle a family argument. This is late, he said, which is a pastor's way of saying he disapproves and approves in equal parts. We need the font, Klein said. He didn't move. You need to tell me why the sheriff's office is requisitioning my water. Because someone filed a body under it, Klein said. His face did a thing you only see on men who have practiced for years not to show you their face. No, he said, and then, who? Danner, Klein said. Let it sit, then added, and the town. He let us in. The sanctuary smelled like wood warmed by decades of breath. The baptismal sat like a wide, shallow promise. Lyle rolled, up his sleeves in a gesture more ancient than the place, and lifted the lid. Under, a hollow too neat for chance. Inside, a jewelry box with a cheap lock and a velvet that had learned brave stains. "Open it," Klein said. Lyle shook his head. "You brought me into this. You open it." Mara reached past both of them and did the job. The lock protested, then remembered it owed someone a favor. Inside, a bracelet with tiny charms, the red enamel heart chipped in the exact place my memory said it would be. Beside it, a key notched differently than the one in my pocket, a house key with a nick that had a story. A phone SIM pried from its plastic and taped to a card that read Eliza, in printing that was trying to be steady and wasn't. "Evidence," Klein said to the air, "because sometimes naming a thing is how you move it from one world to the next." Mara lifted the bracelet and the room learned a color it hadn't known it could carry. "Bring her back," she said, and the vowels behaved. "Back to the water," I said, and the church made a sound like a house remembering it was once a boat. We drove without talking because every word would have been the wrong one. At the quarry, Dawn was the kind that pretends to be brave and then remembers it's just light. The car waited where we'd left it, trunk closed but not convinced. We stood by the edge with the bracelet, the key from my pocket, the key from the box, and the SIM that had been given a gentler grave than most grief gets. "What do we do?" I asked. "We do the opposite of what we did," Klein said. "We open what we closed. We speak what we hid. We leave nothing where we found it except the water." I looked at the lake, and the lake looked at me the way mirrors do when they've decided to be truthful even if you won't be. I took the bracelet and held it until the metal taught my hand its temperature. "Eliza," I said, "because names are tools if you use them properly. We brought back what we took. We'll take back what we brought. We'll say the part that hurts to say." The second ring came then, from the shed floorboards, from the car frame, from the trees, from the shape of the ridge. 2 polite knocks. Space. 2 more. The pattern of a town that has made up its mind. Mara put her hand on mine. "She was in the back seat first," she said. "Not the trunk." Klein didn't flinch. "Say it." "We picked her up by the market," Mara said. "She wanted out. We said we'd get her as far as the bus. The truck hit us near the rail. She hit the window. She said a vowel that made no word and all the words. We thought the trunk would keep her quiet long enough to..." "To what?" Klein asked. "To make the town fix itself," Mara said, and her voice wasn't a whisper or a shout. It was a receipt. "We were going to force proof. We were going to make Danner bargain. We were going to..." "You were 19, Klein said, not kindly, not cruelly. "Finish it." "We were 19, Mara said, and then we were cowards. The lake breathed for us.